It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
This is the Cosmick Voice. Cosmick Voice. Music, talk, and nothing but business with your hosts, Chris Nanolini and Mick Michaels. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cosmick Voice. This is Season 4, Episode 12. I am here with my co-host, Chris Nanolini.
What is up, everybody?
And I am Mick Michaels. Welcome back, everyone, to another show. Chris, how are you, sir?
I'm doing fantastic, Mick. How are you, buddy?
I am fantastic. That was my tagline from Season 1 and 2. I guess you took it now. I got to come up with a new...
I did.
Yeah, I got to come up with something new. Got to come up with something new. I'm fabuloso.
Nice.
Nice.
Look at you.
Yeah, look at you. Yeah.
It's getting warmer here on the East Coast.
Oh, it's beautiful. Beautiful.
Loving it.
The days are getting longer. Yeah, yesterday's storm was nuts. It blew in here. It was crazy buckets. And then it stopped after about 30, 40 minutes. It was nonstop. And then, April showers bring May flowers. And by the time this airs, it will be May. So all the flowers will be out.
Yeah, but what do Mayflowers bring?
Hot June weather.
No, pilgrims. Come on, Mick.
Oh, Mayflowers bring pilgrims, do they? I guess. Yeah. I don't know. Is that history really correct? I don't think so. There, John
Why you gotta bust up my dad joke, man? Come on.
Well, that's how you got to take it now. Dad, was that? I don't know about that history. A lot of that was fabricated.
Yeah, man, it's getting nice on the East Coast. I guess we're not. I guess is that the thing? Like, we're not changing the clocks anymore. Is that like that's done, right? Like the government made that a thing, right? We don't have to do that anymore.
Sure. Now, if they can get rid of taxes and some other things, that'd be great too. I guess they'll go with the easy stuff. We'll change time.
That's right. You got to start somewhere, man. You know what I mean? Yeah. You got to build upwards.
Listen, I could never understand it as a kid growing up. I was like,
it was the farmers, right? It's for the farmers, from what I understood.
But that still doesn't make sense to me. It's like time's time, so we just adjust to the time. Oh, it's dark, we'll stop working. Oh, it's light, we'll start working. And we adjust to the season.
I know.
Because we adjust to the season anyway. Your body will adjust to the season. Like this thing, oh my God, I got an hour less, I got an hour more. I know
you don't, right? Like it's the same amount of time. It's just the sunset.
Yeah, we just have to adjust for it. I never understood it. You know what I mean?
I never understood it either.
So does this mean now that it's going to be dark at 3:30 in the afternoon? I still don't understand. Like, and that's what our tax dollars went. They spent time in Congress. They spent time in Congress about changing the time. Like, there's still hunger in the world. Gas prices are still up. There's still unemployment. I know this is not a political show. There's a war going on. I'm not sure we're really done COVID yet, even though some people have said it. I just don't get it. But we're worried about whether or not some senator wants to get up and change his time or not. Are you serious?
And Mick, remember, like, it's not the whole country. It's only the East Coast, right? Like, is it even Florida? Like, it's just the East Coast that does it. Not everybody does it.
I don't know. I have no idea. I don't think
everybody does. I think we just here on the East Coast, which makes it even dumber.
I don't
because
know.
Only half the country.
And if these people all have cell phones, they never have to change the time. It does it on its own. It's not like you're winding clocks, guys. That's what my tax dollars go for. That and $7,000 hammers. You want to give us some money? This podcast needs it.
That's right. So funny, bro.
So
funny.
This is a music show. Sorry about that, people. I never understood time to begin with. Listen, you live, you die, it's over. What do you want? What do you want? Right. Enjoy the sun in between, right? And when the sun isn't up, go to sleep, get up, do it all over again.
I know. I don't get it, man. I don't understand.
I don't know.
I guess we don't have to do it anymore, so I don't know. I don't know what that means.
I don't know, man. You know, maybe they could talk about in Congress getting John Bon Jovi singing lessons again, surgery, pay for the rest of his concert and refund tickets. I don't know, but I love you, John. I really do. You're one of my heroes. But you know, maybe Paul Stanley has it right. Don't ask, don't tell.
I mean, come on, man. Bon Jovi was like, it was our childhood, man. You know what I mean? Like, that's when he was.
I had my hair frosted like him. I had the shark tooth earring. You know what I mean? When and my boys hit the streets.
Oh, I know. I was never a big Bon Jovi guy, but
I was a big Bon Jovi guy. First album, 7800 and Slippery When Wet. But then after that, I started to go in other places. I mean, I was still kind of into the New Jersey thing, but not as I was with those prior. I mean, really, my favorite album is 7800. I think that is a badass raw album. Yeah. I seen them on that tour. It was amazing. I'm still waiting for that Only Lonely movie to come out. You know what I mean? I remember when it came out, I go, oh my God, he did a movie. This looks great. Little did I know.
Tokyo Road, I think, is one of his greatest songs. I love that song, even to this day, man. It's Tokyo Road is just amazing. But I can always run to you, run to you. Man.
That's bad. Yeah. I used to listen to that over and over. Let me just cut and start a laugh. You know what I mean? Till I put a scratch right across. Ah, man.
Yeah, he was. I mean, listen, he was a big part of our childhood, man.
Well, he was this area, right? The Philadelphia, Jersey area was such a huge deal, man.
He was hot, man. I mean, he just took over. Like when New Jersey came out, it just changed. He was everywhere.
Yeah, but it's crazy.
Yeah, hopefully he's okay, man. Hopefully he's not suffering with anything serious, and he gets this looked at. I'm sure after all this bad press he's getting. I mean, he may not even care. I don't know, but.
Well, people are still going to the show. I mean, now again, this will be a couple weeks. By the time this airs, it's a couple weeks past, so maybe more come out. True, yeah. But videos do keep surfacing daily, which is unfortunate. But he's not hiding it. You know, the same thing. He's just pressing through. Maybe he's having a bad time. I don't know. Everybody has bad times. Believe me.
Yeah, man. I guess. I don't know. Who's to say, right?
Yeah, I've gone through stints where songs that I wrote I couldn't remember, and we're just playing them live, and each night I'm fouling them up, and then all of a sudden I can remember it. I don't know. Who knows? I remember a couple times we were going to go, and we had an intro song, and we had been on the road for a week, and I'm like, I can't remember it. And the drummer looks at me like, "What are you talking about?" I go, "I mean, we're up on stage. They're ready to go, ready to turn the lights on." I'm like. He goes, "Oh, you'll remember it." Psh, 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 psh. I knew what the first chord was, but from there I was like, "What's happening? Why am I drawn?" I mean, but I butchered through it. Oh my God! But again, nothing that distortion can't hide. You just got kind of beauty about a guitar player. You can just keep sliding around. Now, I was never a tremolo guy, but I know guys that will start driving into dive bombs and stuff until they figure stuff out. But that's not me. I'm not that creative, unfortunately.
And the harder you think about it, the more you panic, and it just turns into one revolving wheel nightmare.
Oh my God! Then you're fixated on the mistake you just made and passed, and then you're following up with more and more mistakes, and that's been the story of my life for some reason. Maybe I need to go back and reflect on things. And with that, so tonight we are talking about the good things about today's music industry.
Yeah.
The good things. Well, that's it. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night. I can't think of any. All right, buddy. What do you
next week?
Yeah, tune in next week when we talk about John Bon Jovi, Will Smith, and some other people. All right, buddy. What do you think? What are the good things? It's not that we always talk about the negative things. We do talk about the challenges and confrontations that artists will face being an artist, being in this business. And we also try to offer some ways around it, or some improvement, or some encouragement, or, experience. But let's focus on things that specifically we feel definitely are better now than they were 20 years ago, 30 years ago when you and I started out.
The one thing that comes to mind when you and I spoke about this originally, and we said we were going to do this, the first thing that came to mind is you and I talk a lot about social media, and the music business and how it has affected negatively and some positivity. But, you and I, we come from the old school and we see the bigger challenges now with the world of social media. But the one thing I really like about 2022 and the business we're in and social media, and COVID really kind of did this, for as horrible as that time was, the one really cool thing was it really opened up bands to try other things. You and I have spoken about it many, many times about trying to be outside the box and to keep yourself relevant. And some of the bands that really did, I really liked watching bands in their rehearsal room. Whether it was like they were going live and they would show you, I don't know, how they would rehearse, or I fall back to the death metal band Obituary, like they were selling tickets and you got a t-shirt and you got a fake ticket stub, and I don't know, it was like $25, and they played all this old stuff, or they did stuff by request, and they did it in the comforts of their own studio. They didn't have to leave. And I think that stuff is really, really cool, especially being a fan of that band or being a fan of any band to do it. I think seeing that intimate rehearsal room and how they do things, and I think that's super cool, man. And it brings you closer to that artist and connection, right? We always talk about connections and how important connections are. And with the age of social media and that kind of thing, I really enjoyed that, watching bands, Sammy Hagar in the Circle, they would record songs. Sammy would be singing in his kitchen or in the bathroom, and they ended up, that was so good. They ended up putting a whole album out, and, they played in 4 different places and they mixed it all together, and the mix isn't even that great. They really didn't do much to it. A couple of the songs on the record, if you listen to the record, like you can almost tell that Sammy's in his bathroom singing, and that was really cool, man. Like it was stuff like that I really kind of dug that artists were doing. There was some artists that I'm friendly with, like they would do a Saturday happy hour, and they would be covers, of course, but they would be in their living room and they would set up a big production, and they would, just play songs for an hour because they couldn't play out. They may ask for donations here or there. And it was cool because, me and my wife could sit, on our deck during the summer and watch our friends, be in a cover band, just play. It was a husband and wife team, and they would just play a bunch of songs, and it was really, really super cool. And that's the one thing I really kind of, when we talked about doing, the positives of the music business right now, and that was the one thing that I really kind of enjoyed out of the horrible COVID situation, was the connections and the things that bands were doing outside of the box, and kind of bringing you a different way to view them, whether it was in the rehearsal studio or whether it was in their bathrooms, or it was a way for them to bring you closer to them on a personal level. And I think that's really kind of cool.
The whole social media thing has definitely bridged that gap between artist and fan, or just artist and audience, because not everybody's a fan, right? I mean, but there's right. There's a potential audience out there, and it allows, or it has allowed, people of all different levels, top to bottom and everything in between, to possibly partake in the potential of that audience that's out there. It doesn't mean it worked for everybody, and then you know that.
Yeah,
that was good for some people, and some people tried it and nothing happened. I mean, and again, I think there's a status level that will dictate, are you going to get a percentage of people that are going to do that and not? But the opportunity's there for everyone to at least attempt, to give it a shot, take a chance, right? To put it out there.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll see it. I mean, there's bands with millions of followers, 100,000 followers, and 200 followers, or whatever they are now, likes, follows, however they have it set up. It's definitely not the same for everyone, but everyone has the same opportunity in terms of making it accessible for an audience. How it translates to that audience and what the reception is, that's a whole different ball game. And that's where people will get into talking about, well, it's about the money that you put in, about the PR that you put in, it's about the audience that you've already established prior to the pandemic. But like what you're saying is, there were bands that kind of emerged because of going a different route, trying something different.
Just thinking outside the box, man, because they had to. There was nothing going on. Nobody was touring. What are you going to do? So, and obviously this show isn't about making money, but, some of these guys rely on that money, and they had to think outside the box and do something different. And that's what really, that's what was really,
like you said, kept them relevant. For some people, it kept them sane, kept them doing something.
Yeah.
Right. So they took maybe a, rehearsal, made it live. They answered questions. They just talked about daily stuff. They took requests. You know, some people asked for donations, some people sold merch. So there was a lot of different things. Like, they weren't playing, so they started their own show. Like, they started talk shows, and they brought other bands on, or discussed other things, or people that could get outside, and took people that couldn't get outside via the social media or the internet and gave them an experience. And that's what it is, right? Social media has created that other level of experience that you and I did not have in the 80s. Right. You know, our experience was we had to go to a show that came to town. Right. You know, they didn't happen. Actually, shows didn't happen as often. Bigger name shows didn't happen as often as they do now back then.
No, for sure.
For sure, right? What you had to do back then was you had to go to one of the local clubs to be able to see the regional and local bands that came through and played, right? There was always that kind of show. Right. Yeah. But now you can do it from the comfort of your own home. And like you were saying, bands can do it from the comfort of their own studios.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it really is, the only limitation is what you put the limits on yourself. It's pretty much open to anything. Of course, there's restrictions about what you can do on video if you're using social media channels and, certain restrictions in those regards, of course, and there should be. However, it's like you said, sky's the limit of what you could do.
This is Stephen Piercy from Rat, the Rat Bastard. You're listening to the Cosmick Voice.
Prior to the pandemic, I mean, the connectivity that we have, and we've talked about this before, is just unbelievable. And what I like about it, especially now, because of the internet and everything that's associated with it, but also the broadening of the music itself, it's like niche sounds and styles and artists are able to find a broader audience than before, right? Because back then the gatekeepers kind of kept like genre, subgenres and all that kind of stuff. And I know we talked about that. Are there too many? Has the classification been broken down so much? However, that also shows the freedom that the artist now has taken into their own hands to expand their music the way they want it and find the audience that they want. And that audience, they could have a small following in Hong Kong and a small following in Australia and a tiny group in Canada, but they have an audience now. Where back in our day, you had to be part of one of those mainstream channels. Otherwise, you couldn't play anywhere, nobody was buying your music, nobody was interested in your music, you couldn't do anything with it. There was nothing to it.
Yeah.
So I think that's been a real positive in how more power has come into the artist's hands. I don't think the internet was developed for the music industry. I don't think that social media was developed strictly for the music industry. It was developed for other aspects of life. However, the music industry seemed to be able to thrive, or the artist, I should say, in the music industry found a palette that they could do unlimited amount of things with that before we couldn't, because there were limitations. There were, don't you think?
Oh, 100%.
Like in 87, if you were an obscure band, it was almost impossible for you. Like if you weren't rock, pop, heavy metal at the time, or some form of punk or country, right? And we're talking 87 now.
Right.
Because rap had just, like, for the mainstream, just started to really emerge on the scene at that point. Where were you going to play?
Right.
Like if you did some kind of, like, I mean, think about it. Like at that time, Marilyn Manson sound, well, I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
But you were starting to dive into something so underground, I don't know. Again, if you weren't following that mainstream, you were usually not doing much. And there wasn't much of a way to find an audience if you weren't playing out or you were on some major label.
Yeah.
But now, you don't need any of that with the internet, with social media, and you can find an audience. Just like you said, you can pretty much find anything you want. If you don't like it, you look for something else. And the artists can do that as well. They can just keep doing what they're doing to find the audience that they need. And I think that whole niche thing is really... Niche has become vogue.
Yeah.
For the artist. And I think that is really a positive. It really is a positive. You don't have to worry about something being considered old or odd because there's so much throwback and retro, and people want obscure and odd and weird and strange, and they want it all mixed together sometimes. it's broadened the horizons for the possibilities of what an artist can do. Of course, the flip side, even though this is supposed to be about positives, it's saturated the market so much that it takes more time, energy, effort, money, whatever, to get that to that audience. So,
yeah.
What else you got? What else you thinking?
Another thing, too, that I really like is that, and you kind of touched on it earlier tonight, and this has been happening more and more through the years, but it's really been relevant the past, I don't know if I would say decade, but maybe decade or less, that the artist has taken the power back.
Yeah.
The artists are now finding their own way to get their own stuff out. Where before, back in the day, you relied on record labels and you relied on things that record labels were involved in. Well, now you can put out all that stuff and reach the same, or at least have a good chance of reaching the same people. And, I think the one thing for me that really kind of put that in my eyes was Kiss, right? Like, it was a number of years ago that Kiss made a exclusive deal with Walmart. Right? Was it the Monster?
Monster.
Where it was just sold exclusively, and they said they were going to put up this one whole Kiss aisle, which, to be honest with you, I never found, but whatever. And, they went right through that way, and they kind of, they put out the record and they made this deal with Walmart and they put it out, and it was just them and Walmart. There was no middleman. There was no, all this other things. And now artists can put their stuff on, streaming services and pay. They may not make a lot of money back, but they can put it out there for, you and I both know, putting your stuff on streaming services is not a lot of money, and you can pay, one price and get it put out through many streaming services. And, then you just have to worry about people finding it or you reaching them. But, power back in the artist's hands, I think is a super positive thing. Way back from back in the day, you'll hear all these horror stories from the old R&B artists to the Beatles to up to Aerosmith and beyond, where, they weren't making any money. And here you're thinking they're making millions, and they're not, because
right.
record companies are, ripping them off, or lawyers are ripping them off, or accountants, whatever. Where now you're not really dealing with that. A lot of the bigger artists are putting out stuff by themselves and making exclusive deals. And, look at Taylor Swift. She did it too. I think she did it with Target. And, I think that's awesome. I think that's really, really cool. I wish a lot of artists have done that back in the day. I wish it was possible, but unfortunately it's not. And you have to learn, from the past, and we have. And I think that's a really cool thing. You and I do talk a lot about streaming services and how artists not making, don't really make money and it's oversaturating the market, like you would just said, but on a positive spin that it's going directly into the artist's hands. I think that's awesome. That really excites me because, that's what I want to see. I want to see people put out stuff, and I want people to find it, and I want people to buy it, and I want the artist to get something out of it.
I don't think that was the train of thought back then, cutting out that middleman, so to speak, because it was designed that way, right? But at the same time,
right.
Retail didn't have the same impact as it did. By the 90s, a lot of mom and pop stores started going away, and the big box store, there's people that have lived in the big box store era, right? You and I, we came up from an era that didn't have all that. Back when Walmart was only big in one state, right? So, by the late 90s, early 2000s, Walmart became one of the biggest distribution outlets for music as a buyer. So they were able to control they were able to put an additional sticker on or get certain albums that were censored. If you want this in our store, this song has to be censored, or this has to be censored. They did that for a while. I don't know if they still do that today, but, at the time when Kiss did Monster, there was, again, that's the beauty about having such a powerful brand. They did that with a few of the books that they sold. They pre-sold books, didn't use a publisher, got all this money, had the books done, the books were shipped out, one and done, right? Cut out the middleman, that's good business. But at the same time, let's, call it for what it is, they had a dedicated audience. For smaller bands, that would be fantastic if you could do that. I guess you can now with, buying your own distribution packages, but it's available in Walmart, but unless you're
Right.
to look for it, or it's not like it's going to pop up right next to the Taylor Swift album or
Right.
the new
Right,
Garth
right,
Brooks
right.
or whatever like
Right.
that, which would be kind of cool. But even some names don't even pop up there. Remember, some people
Right.
still pay for
Right.
shelf space or shelf position, I should say, shelf space
Yeah.
and
Oh,
shelf
yeah.
position.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's where sometimes either the power of your brand and or the backing of your label will come in handy, right? They can kind of
Right.
push you up front and things of that nature. I definitely agree that more power to the artist. I think it's fantastic. I'm a firm believer in it. I'm a firm believer in trying to keep all your rights to the bitter end. And more artists have pushed for that, both big and small, where it's commonplace now. It's almost commonplace not to give up anything, regardless of your level.
Right.
Now, again, that's because most of us don't get that big check waving in front of our eyes. And, they start bugging out, and you're like, oh, okay. Like in the Jungle Book, when the snake would talk to you, and the eyes would start rolling, and everybody starts looking at it like, okay, sure, where you want me to sign? So, I jokingly and not so jokingly, I always said, yeah, I'll write one album for the record label if they give me a check. I don't care, because I'll write another one. It doesn't make a difference to me. You know what I mean? But as long as the deal's okay. But like you said, unfortunately, a lot of those guys didn't get a good deal. More power in the artist's hands. The artist just has to be more aware.
You are listening to The Cosmic Voice with your hosts, Chris Natalini and Mick Michaels.
One of the other things that I like, and we've talked about this in many episodes, and I'm a proponent of it, is the digital recording age. I wasn't a supporter of it, didn't like it for a lot of years, was scared of it. I was butchering it too. It took some time. I learned. I found the balance, and it's a positive, man. It really helps the creativity. In my opinion, I can get song from head to guitar to the board much faster now. You know what I mean? I could demo things much faster. I could demo them while they're still in the infant stage or the embryonic stage or the development stage, and get it and hear it and then be able to chop things up.
Yeah.
That's such a creative tool because you can get to a better song sooner. Now, I'm not saying that the old way deterred you from getting to the better song. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is you can get yourself more material and then kind of getting, you know what, that's not the song. Or that's not the way it should be going, let me do this again. And then the turnaround time, right? It's become more affordable. I like more affordable. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be lesser quality or that people are not doing their job. I know there's a lot of talk about, because of the digital era, the digital equipment that's available, the accessibility of it, that artists aren't learning how to play their instruments anymore. And we're seeing that with the backing track thing and, that kind of stuff, which could be a show on itself. But that's true for some, I'm sure. I've worked with some people that it's like, you do a couple takes and the rest are copy and paste. Because it becomes, why not? You're moving on. If time is money and money is time
is money.
And you're just moving on, you're doing what you it's not like you didn't play it. You just didn't play the whole thing. You didn't have, I don't know. The recording thing is just like making a movie. It's about getting all the magic together. Like, do you really want to go buy an album that sounds like crap in terms of like the guys can't play and the timing is off? And no, you want everything together. It's like same with watching a good movie. It's the same thing. How that translates then to the live performance, well, that's a different thing. That's, you can discuss that, and there's people on both sides. So, whatever. I'm still a firm believer in you got to be able to play something. If you do a high-end album with all this stuff, and I get it, because I like writing multiple parts and layering things. However, when it comes to live, I just play the basics. I keep it out there, make it happen. Guys from ZZ Top, two things that they had said at one point after the album was done, they recorded it and all, then they had to go back into the rehearsal to learn what they did and get ready for the tour. And then their next thing is like, hey, it's about keeping it simple when you're playing live. You get the punch going, you get everything going, and you keep it simple so you can keep it intensive. You can keep it active. You keep people engaged. When it gets so complicated and you don't know what you're doing, you lose the audience.
Yeah.
So I could throw everything and anything into the recording because it's kind of like I said, it's making an audio movie. But then when you got to go do it, you got to strip it down like it's a play. Like it's happening at that moment, but it still has to have the dynamics. And that, to me, is, if it's a good song, those dynamics will come. And not every song on an album is going to be top-notch. If you're putting together an album as if it was an album, sometimes they're album songs, they're filler songs. Doesn't mean they're horrible. They're just those deep cuts, those deep tracks. It's a good album song, but that's not a song you're going to keep the crowd going with. They're for those audiophile guys that really like that extra something. That's my opinion. So when you're playing live, you have to be able to play it.
Yep.
And you got to make it count, right? Still has to have the same punch and dynamic, maybe in a stripped-down version. That's my opinion. But I love the digital age now. I've really embraced it, and I think it's fantastic. All around. Economical, time, it's not time-consuming. It's not laborious, where you want to pull out your head. Yeah. I think the drug use on engineers has gone down since the digital age. I think there's less cocaine and heroin use. I don't know, maybe. That's the way I think, because it's you're not sitting there pulling your teeth out saying, well, I don't know how I'm going to do this. Well, they got a plug-in for that. They got a plug-in for that. Oh, the timing's wrong. Well, they got a plug-in for that. That's the wrong key. Well, they got a plug-in for that. That's what everybody got a plug-in for that. Well, we'll fix that in mastering.
Fix it in post.
Yeah, fix it in post. Yeah, and that poor guy's like, "Are you kidding me? You kidding me?" Now, maybe in that end, the drug use is still high. I don't know. What else you got, man? What else you thinking? Anything else?
Yeah, my last thing, I think that, and again, this is something you and I talked about. I believe we talked about it on the air. There was a time in our lives where being played on the radio was huge, right? Like, you would send your demo stuff and you would hope that, at least here, I'm going to date ourselves, back here in Philly, our rock station would have a Loud and Local. It was like Saturday nights, I think at midnight or 11 o'clock or whatever it was. All of us in local bands, we'd all gather around the radios and we'd wait all night, and hopefully they would play our songs, and maybe they would, maybe they wouldn't, maybe say our name or whatever the case may be. Well, now the thing is, because there's really not that much radio anymore that's playing any kind of rock, let alone heavy metal, there's so many options now between your internet radios, between, I don't necessarily know how many of us are getting played on satellite, but there's so many internet radio stations now, and a lot of them, especially the ones that I deal with, really, really concentrate on more unknowns, where you're able to go, hey man, I'll send you an MP3. Can you play my stuff? And they, and it, yeah, sure. Like, it's very, very rarely does, an internet radio station turn your stuff down. And that's really cool, man, because, we all just want to be heard, right? I mean, that's why we do this. We want to share our artistic ways and our views and our music and what we do and what we have to say. And with internet radio, it's really, really given a lot of us a voice across all kinds of genres of music. Is it good and bad? I don't know. You and I have spoken about, with COVID, everybody with a Casio keyboard is, thinks they're, a rock star. But
yeah, I'm one of them.
Yeah. With internet radio, I think it's a good thing, man. I think it gives a lot of artists ways to get their music heard, and I think that's a good thing. I really do. And there's so many out there. Really, it's just a matter of an email, just finding the ones that will play and support you. And I think that's cool. I think it's a really, really cool thing.
Yeah, internet radios, right? They play stuff. The podcast plays stuff. The streaming services, you can get your stuff on streaming services. You can get your stuff on playlists of different kinds. You can create your own playlist. So if you're not getting airplay someplace, you create your own airplay. You make it available on your site.
Yep.
You can post it, going back to your first point of social media. You can put stuff out there. And you could share it around. You drop it into groups, because groups are nothing but, that's the underground. That's these underground communities. Some groups have a couple hundred. Some have 10,000, 100,000, Depends on how algorithms are going for that week with Facebook and other social media stuff. But, you get your music out there. Again, I know a lot of this all ties together, and it all goes back to, it really is the digital revolution of the modern time. And again, I don't think it was designed with music idea intent, but music and the artist was able to jump on it, just like a lot of other industries and platforms, to take advantage of it, right? Because it really comes down to, like you said, just getting heard, getting seen, making the connections, things you couldn't do before. Yeah. And there's so many opportunities that it's almost, you got to be doing something wrong if nothing at all is happening. Yeah. That's my opinion. Doesn't mean you're doing it right, but you got to be doing something seriously wrong if you can't get anything going. Yeah. So it's like one complete package that has all these different little outlets to it. It's amazing. And really, you know, it all stems from the internet. I mean, the internet was around even when we were kids. It's just we weren't privy to it. Like, it wasn't our, you know, it wasn't part of what we did. I mean, there was, you know, they had these little gaming communities and what were they called? Chat rooms. I know they're still called chat rooms now. It was a lot different even then. And they used to share stuff as well. Hey, did you check this band out, or did you see this game? And that's how some of these things started to evolve. And then, you know, it just would build up over time. You know, once the internet took off and really got its, you know, like kind of started really hitting its stride in like 2002, even still, I think we were still in kind of in certain areas still in that dial-up mode. Once they took it, you know, where the cable companies really got control of it, rather than it just being like, you know, Bell Atlantic or something. You go through all that and you're still not on. Yeah. It takes you an hour to download a picture. Just line by line by line.
Line by line,
You know, crazy stuff. So playing music, and you know, the story I told in the other podcast, like when we were doing, you know, we had gotten some programs at that point on some PCs and some early Macs that weren't anywhere near as powerful as they were, you know, later on. To render a part in a song, it would be hours. I mean, you get up, go out to eat, you know, and all this kind of stuff. Get your oil changed, tires rotated, stop, pick up a snack, and it's still, you know, going. It's like, oh my God, it was crazy. Now it's just like the society, right? It's instantaneous. I mean, there's still a rendering point, I get it. And of course, that will depend on the speed of your system. You know, if you bought that system yesterday, it's already outdated tomorrow. So I don't know how fast it's going to be. And that goes back to what I was saying. We're all now kind of slave to that instantaneousness. Like, as an artist, as I'm writing, I can write more often, a lot more, and I can have it in demo form much quicker so that I can determine, do I want to go this route? Or before, you'd be fleshing out a song, maybe sometimes for months on end. It's like, is this what? I don't know. I remember the band I was in the 80s, Seeker, we worked on a song for 3 months. 3 months. And we were going, it was going to be theatrical, and we were going to put all this, we were working in keyboards and just everything. And we got to the end of the 3 months, and we were like, nah, it just isn't working. And we just stopped. That was it. It was done. The only recordings we have of it are some, like, cassette recordings that are real bad now. But we never got to play it live, never did. You know, it's just like, just too much. It just didn't work. But that's what I mean. It took 3 months for us to decide that. Hours on end of practicing it, you know. Now you can put a song together. I don't like that. It's okay. Erase. Delete.
Delete.
If you remember, like big reel-to-reels, they take a lot of storage. You got to store them a certain way because they can get damaged, stuff like that. So nowadays, it's much easier. Much easier. I'm eating through the terabytes like crazy, both with audio and video. You know, 4 terabytes isn't enough anymore. You know what I mean? And, you know, now I don't even know what you need. It's crazy. You get like 150 different Dropbox accounts so you can get as many free ones as possible.
That's so true. I just started paying for mine. I don't care anymore.
It's like you get to a point, you go, all right, I'll pay for it. All right. Because I can't remember all the accounts anymore. I had something in there. I'm not sure what it is. Listen, there is a lot of good things, for sure. This is a challenging business. So is any other business. Like, if you're serious about it, you're working every angle that you can, there's always challenges. But it is rewarding. And the rewards go far beyond, in my opinion, the money or the accolades from an audience. Honestly, you can't do this for 30 years still holding out for the money, right? Or the fame or the fortune and all that stuff. Because there gets to be a point you go, you know what, it probably isn't going to happen. And that's okay. I'm not doing it for that. I'm doing it because it's an extension of who I am, of me, and I want to get it out. I want to do it. I want to create. There's a creative process, I'm speaking strictly on myself, that I love and I enjoy, and then I share it. And if people dig it, that's okay, and I move on, and I do something else. Right. And that's exciting. So now that you have these modern-day tools to help that process, I think is fantastic. If you were around that time, 87, even before, because, again, the further you go back, the harder it even was. I remember in, 85, when you could get your own 4-track, which cost like a mint back then, and this was this tiny little thing. But that was going to make you a star. Right? It was like, I don't know, $400 or $500 back then. And in 85, $400 or $500 for a teenager was like, oh my God, I'm not sure. Am I good? I may have to work like 6 years just to pay this thing off. So, and you were like, okay, I'm going to record. You had to bounce things around and, try to make it that 4-track and 8-track or a 16-track somehow. It was crazy. And then you got done and you go, man, that don't sound like a Van Halen album. What am I doing? I must need an 8-track. So it was crazy, man. I remember doing recordings with 2 or 3 boom boxes. And then you play them, you back them up, and you try to play them together, and you get everything, and then you punch in, punch out. Because you could do that on certain ones back then. That was tedious, man. Because if you missed your mark, you got to start all over again.
Yep.
Oh, I lost it. I got to do it again. What do you mean I got to do it again? I can't do that again.
I don't even know what I did.
I'm not even sure what I did. All right, you got anything else you want to add?
No, my brother, that is it.
All right, if you like that, check out some of our other stuff at www.thecosmicvoice.com. Step into the Cosmic Verse and fill that void. You'll never know what you'll find in Chris's beard. Thanks so much for listening. This is the Cosmic Voice. Be sure to check us out at thecosmicvoice.com. Like and follow us on Facebook at The Cosmic Voice. You can find The Cosmic Voice everywhere you listen to online podcasts, like Deezer, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, Stitcher, and so many more.
Okay, folks, that will do it for another episode of The Cosmic Voice. Mick and I would like to say thank you very much for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
You're listening to The Cosmic Voice. Music, talk, and nothing but business.